What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boyce, and you are here for another episode of the Facts Project. Today, very special guest, Oliver Mertz. We are here to talk about a very unique book. And I have to talk about, first off, just the title itself. A Ghost Arm Made of Angry Ghost. For Oni Press, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's really exciting. I've been working on this thing for many years, and to finally actually have it to a point where I can share it and we can talk about it is great. And thank you so much for having me on.
No, absolutely. Now, of course, we talked a little bit offline, and we were talking about the fact, of course, that you've been in the industry for about close to 17 years. For this being your first project, the solely your own, writing this and putting this together. For listeners discovering a ghost arm made of angry ghosts for the first time, what was the elevator pitch to Oni Press when you were putting this together?
Well, first I'll say, I've been making comics with friends and co-writing things. So
Mhm.
just to give that little place setting. So I have been putting out comics this whole time, and so when I went to actually write a ghost arm made of angry ghosts. Um, and so when I say like this is my first thing, first of all, it is my first book with a publisher. I've been self-publishing this whole time,
Yeah.
but it is my first book that is just it's all me. And if you like it, that's it's my brain all on the page. Um, the pitch to Oni Press it's interesting. So I wrote it. Having said all that I just said, I wrote a book that I didn't know anyone was going to read. I wrote a book that I wanted to read and that I felt compelled to write.
Mhm.
I wanted it to be a love letter to growing up in the DC area. I wanted it to be a love letter to the punk scene. I wanted it to be a comment on like grief and like a dying loved one, like what
Mhm.
it is to live with that.
Yeah.
I like weird stuff, so the book, as I started writing it and having those very real things and like the real setting of DC, the book starts getting weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
So having said, like, I wrote this book that I didn't know anyone was gonna read but myself. um I was very fortunate to connect with Alex Diotto. I can talk more about it in a second, but we put together the book. We decided to go to Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is what got Oni's attention.
Gotcha.
So I will say, anyone listening, anyone can do a Kickstarter. Anyone can put a comic together,
Yep.
and a publisher can notice your book from that. Like, it is not about like the gatekeeping of, like, you have to know this person or that person is not always the case. It certainly is the case sometimes, but it's not always the case. And you can make a thing and put it out there. And yeah, I put it out there, and I got a message on well, it was on Twitter, which I can't show you the message because I'm no longer on that horrible platform.
As
But
as if all of us, most of us.
yeah. Oh gosh. It's been years now, and I no regrets.
Hmm.
But I got a message there saying, "Hey, what are you going to do with the book?" Like, we had put out the Kickstarter, it was 58
Yeah.
pages. It was from the head of Oni, Hunter Goranson, who is incredible and really is looking to shape Oni as a home for interesting and odd and compelling stories that um, kind of push things. And I sound like I'm hyping myself up there, lumping myself in there, but I really feel incredibly fortunate to be at Oni, because
Yeah.
if you look at what they're putting out right now,
Hmm.
uh, they have so many like so many creators who, like, I will read anything by them, like Patrick Horvath, who does Beneath the
Hit the
Trees,
trees.
where nobody sees, like, that book, and that whole series is just brilliant. And
Hmm.
he has a book with Oni, Free for All, which is, I'm honored to be on the virtual shelf next to a book like that.
Hmm.
uh or like David Baker has a new book, Halloween Boy.
Hmm.
Like, there are so many books that they have that, like, I don't know if they necessarily fit anywhere else, but they definitely fit with Oni, and a Ghost Star Made of Angry Ghosts, I think, found the right home. Um,
Definitely.
but as I said, but as we talked before we started, that I was going to ramble, I have made good on that promise.
For sure. Now the title, and I'm glad you
Mhm.
actually said the title again because the title was unforgettable.
Yeah.
How early on did you land on it, and what does it mean to you?
I will say the original title was Wastoid,
Hmm.
and someone else can take that and use that, or I'll use it for something else. But I thought that was an awesome thing, like because that was just like an old throwback insult that you would have heard. Although the book takes place in the '90s, it's a little more '80s,
Hmm.
and I just like the Wastoid as that. Um, so that was the working title until. As I was writing, I came up with this idea. At one point, I like making lists of things.
Yeah.
Um, many years ago, when Paul Thomas Anderson did the movie Magnolia, I
Hmm.
saw this like awesome interview he did with Elvis Mitchell, and they're talking about like, oh, how do you make it? He's like, I like making lists. I make these lists of everything, and at a certain point, my brain just starts connecting some things
Hmm.
in that list, and then I go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, what about that? Um, and I don't know, something like that process kind of stuck with me. I kind of pick process pieces here and there as sort of we all do.
Gotcha.
But I had this idea, I put it on the list, and it sat on the list, and it was like number six, of whatever, and
Hmm.
it just says Ari has a ghost arm made of angry ghosts. And it was just on the list. It wasn't the title. But as I started thinking of that idea and developing what that meant for the story and how that
Hmm.
would be incorporated, that phrase, which is kind of clunky
Yeah.
in a way, but like the fact that it's clunky makes it stick. If it was like just like ghost detective. I don't know. There's no detective. It's
Right. Right.
whatever. It goes like that's clean and whatnot, but that sounds like everything else. And so I felt like the sort of phrase "a ghost arm made of angry ghosts," um, like really stuck with me because it didn't seem like something else.
True.
And so I made it the title, and for better or for worse, it's also something that Ari, the main character, has to deal with.
For sure, for sure. And once again, we spoke a little bit offline about this because, of course, this is heavily rooted in late 80s, early 90s Washington D.C.
Mhm.
Punk backdrop. Now,
Mhm.
the book feels deeply rooted in the DC punk scene.
Mhm.
What made that era worth revisiting? Because
Yeah,
you brought up a couple bands,
sure. Yeah.
Jay Z and Jawbox.
Yeah. So Fugazi, Jawbox, like all of the bands that like I hold up as like just like the best music ever made. And like
Mhm.
there's also something I think about with especially with Fugazi and Jawbox as well, but like my mom was like a Beatlemaniac,
Okay.
and like so like growing up, we'd hear the Beatles, and like I love the Beatles. The Beatles are great, and I can't contextualize the Beatles against contemporaries the way I can. Even the Rolling Stones, who I think are an amazing band, or like the
Mhm.
Kinks, I can sort of place them on the shelf.
Yeah.
But like the Beatles, I hold up, like my mom would hold them up, and I hold them up too, as like just sort of a little bit more of perfection. Like what
Yeah.
they did was that. And for me in DC, Fugazi is that same level. Like I imagine if you were in 1964 Liverpool, you'd be like, "Oh, they're Beatles lads. They're my lads, and like they're making this music,
Right.
and it was your music." In the 90s, like Fugazi, in the DC area, that was our band.
Hmm.
And the
Like a
music they were
homegrown band.
homegrown band, but like, they're internationally known, they're playing and
Yeah.
everything, but like they always like you'll see in the comic, they play it in like a church basement and stuff. And they always used to charge $5 for their concerts. It was never more than that, and like a lot of times, like the money's going to a charity or
Yeah,
something. Like that particular show was for an elderly community, like an organization that helped the elderly. That particular concert had that. Like I have the stub somewhere, but like there was something about like playing in your community, making it accessible,
yeah,
helping to give back to your community using the art form that is your medium of choice. So
yeah.
for them, music, using that to,
My skill is
uh,
a contribution.
yeah, like you're making your art and your art is your thing, but it can also serve your community
Hmm.
in a way. And also anyone can do it. That was also something too that I thought was like a real DC thing. Um, it doesn't necessarily mean everyone's good. I think that's
True.
separate. But I think anyone can do it is the like just do it yourself. Like don't wait for like Fugazi could have signed to some big major label. They just did their own label. They put
Hmm.
their own stuff out there. And that's sort of like what, for me, like doing independent comics for years, like
Yeah,
that mindset for me, I never really felt like I was missing something. And also, I was never made, I'll say the comics community is also like very much receptive to like people just doing it themselves.
oh, for
I,
sure.
you know, I do shows and like, I'm tabling next to so and so who does some big book or whatever, but we all just make comics. It was never you're on this level. Well, there's some jerks, all right.
Right, right, right. For
But
sure.
but a large part, I've been very fortunate to meet those. But meet nice people. But so like Fugazi, like all of the like do it yourself, make the art that you want to make, use that art to engage with your community and like for the better,
Yeah,
like and beyond your community too. But like that, I think uh, change in a lot of things can also start start small, that type of thing.
for
But
sure.
that all like just lived in
Now, was there outside of just the backdrop and of
my.
course the setting that you basically created, was there a specific moment that you would possibly recall from like maybe like your own youth that unlocked the emotional core of the story?
Yeah, I mean, like part of I'll say this is where it's DC. So we've talked about how
Yeah,
it is the real Washington DC. It's not the politics,
yeah.
and then the politicians coming in.
Not the National
It,
Mall.
it is not the National Mall. Uh, it is just like everyone who lives here and the community of people who live here and the people who make things. And like DC was always its own thing. It's not New York, it's not LA. DC, we all made it our own. So I've having said that, there's also superpowers in the story,
Yeah.
which is not a thing that we had in DC.
Hmm.
So that grew out of to get to that specific like emotional core piece. That grew out of also wanting to write about. So my father passed away 13 years ago from pancreatic cancer,
Sorry to hear that.
which thank you. But cancer is just the worst, and it's just terrible. And
Hmm.
there's all sorts of things. I had wanted to write something about that experience because I knew that I wanted to read something that like spoke to the feelings that I was having around that time, but I was
Hmm.
never ready to do that. And I couldn't, start to write something and it just felt wrong. And as I was writing this story, I knew that I wanted that to be a piece of it.
Yeah.
Um, but at some point I had the idea that, well, what if Ari's father
Hmm.
dies of pancreatic cancer
Okay.
every night?
Mm.
And then what if he comes back every night?
Yeah.
What if he was granted or gifted or cursed with the with immortality, but only after he already had stage 4 pancreatic cancer?
Right.
So the cancer eats and kills him every night,
Hmm.
and it bring the immortality that he that power that he has brings him back.
Yeah.
You know, it opened up the world, and that's where like the superpowers started coming from. So like
Hmm.
they I started thinking, well, okay, well that makes sense because you're talking about like longitudinal grief and
Yeah.
that sort of that sense of like, well, how do you comment on that feeling of like when you do lose someone and like 2 days later you wake up and you've forgotten that they died and
Yeah.
and they're alive in your head until they're not, and they die again as you're like, oh no, oh yeah.
Hmm.
Um, not to say that this book is a total bummer, but like,
Oh,
uh, like it's something that I thought really I could speak to in a way that I hadn't seen before and would be interesting, and it would be something that I think would be solid for the characters to like uh dig into and like really explore those dynamics and what that does.
yeah.
But so all right, so if Ari's dad now has immortality, immortality now exists in the world. So now the world has diverged from our own. And
Yeah.
so then I started filling it up with things that I thought I wanted to see powers done in a way that like I didn't normally see. So
Yeah. That-
useful powers are not necessarily as interesting to me as useless powers.
oh, yeah.
Um, and I think that not everyone has to be a hero. Not everyone has to take it, to assume that everyone with powers would like rise up and be this superhero. I mean, sure, you're going to have people like that, and we do have a
Hmm.
superhero at the core of the story. But um, I, you know, I just thought it was interesting that like, well, what if it's not exactly everyone, but it's a lot of people who have these powers, and they're
Oh,
not
yeah.
all gonna use them for the betterment of everyone. They're also just gonna try to get through their day, and they're gonna try to like find time to watch Star Trek with their dad, who's dying all the time, and
Right. Right. Right.
you know,
Yeah. Because
um,
everybody has these perceptions about superheroes. They're
mhm.
almost mythical, you know.
Yeah.
The superheroes that you basically created throughout this book, they feel almost incidental. That they're like a little bit more worn down as to what they've
Mhm.
gone through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, yeah, and I also like, there's I mean, in this world, we're joining the story, years after, maybe the heyday of when the like the powers really existed. So like,
Hmm.
there's a character, Marlowe, who is a part of um, this program that has reassigned her after she's been sort of foiled by a superhero. She has a criminal past, and her punishment is to sort of help the community turn her powers around. And her ability is to control the weather. So she's been told that she has to show up every week
Yeah,
and
it's like
let the
community
community.
service for her.
It's a community service. It's an odd one, but it is. And so people show up and they vote by Skittles, essentially, in a jar. Different colors equal different weather. There's
Mm,
cloudy, rainy, snow, sunny days, but everyone only goes for sunny days
yeah,
generally. And there's all of those different elements. I thought it added up to something interesting. And
yeah,
then I'll also say, without saying who or why or anything, because I don't want to spoil things, there's a murder.
yeah.
It is a murder mystery.
That was my next question. Like,
Oh, sure.
why pair superhero mythology with a murder
Mhm.
mystery in this story?
Because I have ADHD and I look at this way, I look at that way, I look at
Hmm.
everything all the time. And why not put everything together? Why not have everything running at the same time?
Yeah.
And I think there's plenty of superhero murder mystery stories out there.
Hmm.
And there's plenty that are like they have been perfected.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing um, I'm not bringing something that you necessarily haven't seen before with a superhero murder mystery. What
Yeah.
I'm bringing is the way that I tell you this superhero murder mystery.
Correct. And
Like,
the first thing that kind of like comes to mind as far as like a superhero murder mystery is kind
yeah,
of the quintessential Watchmen, right?
sure, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But the way that you kind of like dived into this a little bit, I saw the reference that you basically brought up was that I would say that it kind of like mixes in what you brought in was David Lynch as an influence.
sure. Like, think of Twin Peaks, like the mystery, who killed Laura Palmer.
Hmm.
Like, there that opened up the world to so many interesting characters and
Yeah.
so many twists and turns that like were not linear, and they would bring you this way, and they were surprising, and I love that. I love that,
Totally
like,
out of left field.
totally out of left field, but it should feel right for the story. You
Yes.
know what I mean? If you're going like I will follow along with a story if I feel like there's a confident hand guiding me through it. I
Hmm.
will not follow along with a story if I feel like someone's just throwing things together and it's not quite, you know, uh, I don't necessarily trust them. So
Hmm.
uh, I hope that the readers trust me on this. I also think, the opening of the book, hopefully sets the tone a little bit,
Hmm.
and also tells the audience that they're not going to get a straight answer exactly.
Now, I'll ask you this because you just said that. Did you
Yeah.
map out every mystery beforehand, or did you let the discoveries happen organically?
I I want to say that I had some great plan, and I really want to say that,
Hmm.
but I had ideas for things that I thought would work and be it would be interesting, but really, like, the characters, like, you start writing. I will say this, writing drafts. Like, I used to like write a first draft and be like, I finished my draft, my comic script. I'm done. It took me many years to really realize the value of like how you
And
can make yourself look a lot smarter
oh yeah, an
on
editor.
draft. Yeah. Oh, get an editor for sure. An editor is like a beta reader, like they're not there to like kick holes in it because they don't like it. They're there to kick holes in it so that you can make it more this is a phrase, and my wife is a choreographer, and one of her teachers many years ago said this phrase, make it more what it is. And
Hmm.
I love that, just for art in general, like as a note, like make it more what it is.
Yeah.
Because I think that, as I said, like you've seen a superhero murder mystery before, but you haven't seen me do a superhero murder mystery.
Right.
And like what it is um, my execution of it. Like
Yeah.
I actually think ideas in general, I used to think like you come up with this idea and this one idea, like this is the thing, like the hook, like whatever it is.
Hmm.
Uh, and like I don't know, like so I worked on this comic for many years, still working on this comic with my good friend Mike Eisenberg,
Hmm.
and artist Michael Bracco. It's called and originally arted by Daniel Lapham, fantastic artist. And the book's called First Law of Mad Science, and it features
Okay.
there's this inventor, this sort of super scientist. His son is involved. There's all these things. And when we were first making it, like we had written like 6 issues. We hadn't started working with an artist yet. We had written like 6 issues, and then Fringe came out, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, like. Like, oh no, this is what's going on. First of all, I love Fringe is just such a
Hmm.
fantastic. But like it had a lot of the different pieces of it,
Yeah.
and it really, I mean, it kind of took my friend Mike talking me down, but like it helped me realize that like I'm like, oh, but this isn't our comic.
Yeah.
Like it has similar like tropes and things, and we knew we were playing with tropes, but like
Hmm.
your idea is less important than your execution. Like it's just like you give, 10 people 10 seeds of an idea, like they're going to give you 10 different things.
Yeah.
And like if you do that well, then hopefully the reader will trust you as you go along
Oh yeah.
with it and know that like, well, I might know how these beats play out in other stories, but like
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where you're going to take it.
Yeah.
So,
And what I like is that a lot of what I can't say a lot of authors, but some
mhm,
authors will take adjectives that they absolutely love and insert them into the book.
mhm,
There's some that people may deem strange or better
mhm,
yet even weird. Now how do you know when something is
mhm,
weird enough to where everybody's going to be comfortable with it versus
mhm.
too confusing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, an editor also will tell you, like,
Oh yeah.
I see what you were trying to do here, and you're not doing it. So
Hmm.
that is something. Early on, with the script, I had the incredible good fortune to connect with Shelley Bond, who was ran Vertigo after Karen Berger left, but like
Hmm.
had been there for majority of it. Had was the editor of Fables.
Hmm.
Shade the Changing Man, just like legendary editor. Um, so I connected with her through one of her Kickstarters, and we
Okay.
started talking. And then she had this idea. So my reward was she would read my pitch and give me
Okay.
notes. Right? From that, though, she was like, "Well, do you have a script? Let me read the script." And I was like, "Whoa, this is more." And we started talking, and we ended up, we have a lot in common. We got along. And she goes, "All right, I'm going to be teaching an editing class. Can I? Can we use a ghost arm made of angry ghosts? Just the very first piece of it. Can
Okay.
we use it in the class?" And that was really the first time I had worked with an editor and editors because it was the class.
Yeah.
Um, and it certainly it changed the way that I make comics. Like, and I think it's a really simple thing that like, of course, having someone who is on your team who is going to be um, looking out for your own shortcomings or
Yeah.
the the ways in which the book could go a little further this way, a little more. So like when something's weird, and as you were saying,
Yeah.
um, weird can be interesting, weird can be right for the story, and
Yeah.
weird can be out of place and like take the reader out of it. Um, I can't think of any particular thing that like came up where it was like take that out. That's not,
Yeah.
but I can think of like times where a note would be you could push that a little further.
Yeah. For sure.
And,
And in the story, just as far as like the characters, because we
mhm,
talked about Ari a little bit, and we talked about how closely that
mhm,
basically pertained to you at a certain age. Now,
mhm,
Ari, of course, is dealing with grief, uncertainty, adolescence simultaneously.
yeah.
Which of those themes came first?
I think it's all of them. I mean, they're all on the list, right? So, like, if
Hmm.
I'm making lists of things, I have ideas for scenes on there. I have ideas for characters. Um, and, like, one of my favorite things about writing is that you can kind of write wherever and everything, and you can kind of bounce ideas. Like,
Oh
you
yeah.
can, before you get to actually putting it on the page, you're already sort of crafting it and thinking, well, how does this connect to how does that? And
Hmm.
so all of those ideas are like, being a teen, being an awkward teen, being, I think everyone likes to think of themselves as like a little bit cooler than they are.
Hmm.
And like, there's something about also like when you finally as a teen connect with something that you find cool, like
Oh
so like
yeah.
the DC music scene for me was like, a thing I'm like I felt like I was in on something
that nobody
that
else was a part
that
of.
nobody else knew. So like
Yeah,
even
I
that,
could
at
gatekeep this
school, but it's not about gatekeeping so much as it is. Yeah, yeah, kind of, but also
in
like
the beginning.
uh, in the beginning, yeah, because now I'm like everyone should, yeah,
Everyone should.
yeah, okay, so maybe a little bit of gatekeeping,
Hmm.
but that idea of like it was mine and like I found a cool thing
Hmm.
and like that was something. And I think that like I don't know, like you think of punk rock music and the way that it kind of gets portrayed in a lot of stories, it like has like, hey, we're like edgy and tough and whatnot. And
Right.
it's like, well, also there's a bunch of nerds and like especially in the DC punk rock scene, there's just like a bunch of like nerds who just love punk music and they love like
Hmm.
um interesting compositions and like discordant sounds and
Yeah.
there's a thing of like, in DC. So like, yeah, you'd have like really wild shows and things like that, but
Yeah.
you'd also sometimes go to a show and everyone's just standing there and no one's moving at all. No one's dancing because they're
Yeah.
just like really appreciating the bands,
Yeah.
you know?
But
But
there's a
like,
lot of experimentation involved.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, it's like, oh, well, where are you going with this? Like, okay, well, this, like, you're following along. But like, um, it's just like another flavor of like a punk fan. And like really this book is about their fans. Like I'm not speaking to the experience of being in a band. I'm not speaking to that type of thing. I will put in a plug for Steve Niles, who you'll know from 30 Days of Night, just a fantastic, brilliant comic writer, from just a million other things,
Hmm.
was also in a legendary DC punk band, Gray Matter, and
Okay.
has a new book coming out also in September called Take It Back, and everyone should totally pick that up because that is a book about being in a band
Okay.
and the experience of growing up in the DC area at that time, being in a band. I can't talk to that. I mean, I was in bands, but they weren't good bands or anything
Right.
like
Right.
that.
Right.
That was the thing. But like, this book is about some fans, some awkward teen fans who get like pulled into this like weird murder mystery in a like a world where people have superpowers.
Right.
Um, it is that fan like feeling and that feeling of like you're riding the metro to a show, you're hanging out, they end up talking a lot about the murder mystery, but they would have been talking about
Hmm.
going to this show, did you get that record or something like that.
Yeah.
um and there's something about that hangout feeling and that like easy back and forth that like friends have that I also really wanted to put in there. Like, when like you find someone that you click with that like even if like you to on the outside you might sound like you're bickering,
Yeah.
uh, like the old dudes from the Muppets or something.
No, of course.
But like you still like there's like love there and there's a shorthand there and like there's like a shared understanding of the world and like so that's another thing I wanted to put in there.
Yeah. As far as like the characters,
Mhm.
obviously, in Ari's case, he's trying to figure things out.
Yeah,
He's of a certain age where he's trying to figure things out.
yeah,
Maya feels a lot more grounded in the story.
yeah, yeah.
But yet, even in the midst of them two, cohesively coming
Hmm.
together, in with this whole murder that takes
Hmm.
place, it turns everything upside down.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, how did you approach that? Because it's like I have these characters that are distinctively different,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it takes for a traumatic incident to bring them kind of together.
Yeah, I think like, that also goes back to when you do experience like trauma and things like that, those things do bring you together
Hmm.
in a way that it's hard to like really define, but like
Yeah.
you're kind of bonded beyond just the just in a completely different way. But also like you see the way that different people handle different things and different people have different ideas on how to handle things. And like I can think of different like big life-changing experiences, the differences between the characters and how they approach
Hmm.
like life-changing situations like
Yeah.
and things like that. So I I think in real life, those differences that trying to like problem solve like big like personal emotional crisis um, can either like bring you together, really push you apart, and really sometimes you also you find that like you're just like feeling things like crank to 11 and you just um everything is just like really really raw and um no one is really approaching things in a way that is like all about consensus. Generally people in really heightened emotional times
Yeah.
um trying to just say let's do it this way, let's do it that way, that type of thing. And um I think the balance of the friendship, the balance of the extreme events, the like sort of questioning of, what is it even happening? How is this happening?
Yeah.
Um, all of those different things. In real life, this would be like horrific and
Hmm.
just terrible, but like in a story, it can be great drama
Yeah. And you
and
also
like
even
make
add
for that.
another,
Like,
yeah, you also add another element to this because there's a lot of humor involved that kind of takes away, it kind
mm,
of peels the banana back as far as like the important balancing the heavier themes that are in this. Humor kind of like dissolves that a
sure,
lot. And
yeah.
I feel as though the way that you basically like put a little bit
Well,
of
so
comedy
like
spin in that helped.
I think, yeah, I think I heard something that Kevin Smith said
Mhm.
years and years ago, where he was like, sometimes he was talking about this is in relation to the movie Dogma, and
Yeah.
he was saying like, it's like a balloon, and like you're inflating it, and if you like if you sometimes you can blow that balloon and it can pop and then your story doesn't work and no one's listening like but if you're inflating that balloon and it's tense and there's also these big swings, big character things, and then you add like Jane Silent Bob in there and all of a sudden like you've deflated the balloon, you let a little air out with their humor there that like
Hmm.
allows you to keep inflating and keep telling that story.
Right.
And so I kind of always approach things in that way, that like there's a balance. um, I, you know, I tend to uh, try to like I use humor as like a defense mechanism, as
Okay.
a default, um, and I think that uh, you know bringing in like just different elements, like it just feels real to me. That
For sure.
feels natural to me.
No, no, definitely.
Like like we'll be talking about something and like you'll bounce around, people bounce around in conversations, people bounce around, and you're not always talking about the heaviest of the heavy, and even in inappropriate times you might be saying something pretty darn silly.
That's for sure. Now, how did Alex Diotto get involved?
Yeah. So Alex, who is a genius and like just does some amazing work on this book and just does amazing work on everything that he does. And for if you're listening and you don't know his work, Indigo Children he did with Kurt Piers uh, is brilliant. It did a book also with Kurt called Olympia, which is brilliant as well. During the pandemic, I colored this book. I do
Hmm.
color work. I had colored a couple of short stories that Kurt Pierce had had written in two different anthologies. So I was like, okay, so Kurt always works with Alex, and like I tangentially know Kurt, right? And so
Yeah.
like we're online. I'm like we're in the same ecosystem. This is not going to be weird if I just message Alex out of the blue and say, "Hey, I got this script. I hope you like it. Would you like to work with me on it?" And I said that and sent the script to him.
Yeah.
Um, and like as we've talked about, it's very DC and it's
Hmm.
very sort of very personal and all these different things. and like, talk about Fugazi and all these things. So Alex, who is Italian, lives in Italy,
Okay.
and is younger than me. Is like, he replies back. He goes, "I have to tell you, I love Fugazi. I grew up with Fugazi." He's like, "I have to draw this book." He's like, "I love the DC punk scene and all
No
these things,"
shit.
and I just like, I was like, oh, I knew his art style would
Yeah.
be perfect for the book. It wasn't until we started talking that I was like, oh, he just is perfect for this book. Like
Right.
and I love the fact that like this thing that like I held as like, this is my thing. And, this is our thing also, is a thing that reaches other communities and other different places and
Yeah.
has meaning elsewhere. And
Stretched as
I,
far
I
as
love
Italy.
in Italy, like like all over the world, like the world is small. Oh, I like when the world is small in a good way. I like when the
Yeah.
world is, the world is a big place, and I like when the world is big in other ways. But I like
Yeah.
when the world is small, where like you can have a shared understanding with someone from somewhere else because you like the same band.
Yeah.
Like that's the foundation that like builds up friendships. That's the builds up understanding. You're now gonna less likely to, the world is smaller and they're not the other. They're just your buddy who likes Fugazi.
For sure.
Like the world gets smaller and better. I love those moments. And so it was definitely a moment where Alex was like, yeah, I love that the DC music scene. I love this story. I have to draw this. Um, and it ended up being just like a wonderful collaboration.
For sure.
Um, we're actually working on another book together after this. We have something else, and I think we found a good rhythm. I'm coloring his work, and I love his art so much. And a lot of times, with colors, in fact, all the time with colors, working with an artist, I really want to let their art shine.
Yeah.
And Alex just makes it so easy to color because every page has something that's interesting and unique that just like pulls me in, and it's just so fun. Um, I just have a lot of fun coloring his pages. So yeah, we really hit it off, and
That's excellent.
this book just started moving. And then I'll also say Taylor Esposito, who does the lettering in the book. Taylor, just nominated for a Ringo Award.
Yeah.
Taylor he is widely known as one of the best letterers in the business, and he has worked on like every single book out there.
Yeah.
Um,
I always find
and
I always find
I am
letterers.
just
Yeah, I always find letterers like compelling because they're doing like 17 projects at once.
they're doing a million things, and like, oh man, like, yeah, for Taylor, he's like, yeah, he's like, I'd love to work on it, and he's like, but I got to schedule it. He's
Yeah,
very good with the schedules, make it because he's got to keep the trains running on all the different books.
for sure.
um and I just feel incredibly lucky to have him working on this book because I think it, you know, uh, bad lettering will sink a book. Okay lettering will maybe skate by, but like good lettering really elevates a book, and Taylor always elevates everything he does, and I just feel so fortunate.
Yeah. So now,
To
since you're a colorist by trade, how did your
Mhm.
creative responsibilities differ from your previous works because you were doing double duty?
Well, so I do also do colors on the books that I co-write, the self-published books. So there's the Monuments, First Law, Mad Science.
Hmm.
Those are the ones that I co-write with my friends, Mike Eisenberg and Michael Bracco. And so I do color those books too. So like there is something different though when like Alex and I we put this together independently before Oni knocked on the door
Hmm.
because we were doing a Kickstarter, right? So we're doing it all ourselves. And
Yeah.
so for me, I'm also like making sure that the trains are running and everything like that. Like I'm making sure that all the different pieces are going there.
Yeah.
Um, but I also like I got to be the last word on everything. And I will say Oni let me be the last word. There was no they were not heavy-handed in any way, and they were completely supportive of making the book that we wanted to make. But like when I was like, I'm just doing this thing, I go in and try some like wild colors, and sometimes it worked, sometimes I'd have to pull myself back, that type of thing. But I really wanted to push things in here. I knew as I was writing it, I knew the tone in terms of
Yeah.
um, like I wanted the flat colors because I think it's a little timeless. Um, I wanted a certain look, um, but getting in there as the colorist with my colorist hat on, I started really playing with like the environmental lighting and
Hmm.
like really setting the different tones in a different room in a different location to really have a different feel, and like you can really play with the colors there
Yeah.
to sort of both differentiate it but also like really like hit the feeling. Like so like the scenes in Ari's basement, um in my head the thing that I'm like going back to is like as a kid, that
Hmm.
feeling when you go down to the basement and like maybe you're getting some laundry out or something, and maybe whatever that, but like you don't think about how dark it is until you do, and then
Oh yeah.
as soon as you do, like you got to get out of that place as fast as you can. And so,
Oh
like that feeling as a kid, you know what I mean? Like you're a
yeah.
kid and you're just like, like you end up running up the stairs and you've like scared yourself.
Hmm.
Um, as a colorist, like I think about those things and I think about that feeling.
Hmm.
And if the color doesn't do something for me that like gets at like these like somewhat abstract but directly related to the environment, like a feeling. If it doesn't get to that, then it's not right. Um, and so that really kind of shapes the story as well.
Yeah.
And I think every stage of comic making is creating the book. Like everyone is working together to create it. I just happen to wear two hats on
Yeah.
it, but uh, yeah, it's like just it added a whole other layer to me. Like when it really felt, um, when it felt right.
Oh, definitely. Now, if we're thinking about the world that you created and the setting in which you
Hmm.
created, do you feel like this world could
Hmm.
support additional stories that you create?
It really, I mean, are people going to buy this book? Are people going to read it? If people like it,
Yeah.
there's that. I will say that I have additional stories and things that I already have ideas for how to build them in this world.
Yeah.
Um,
Because there's so many
like
characters in it. Yeah, I mean, even just
I,
background characters aside from
I
the main ones that we have.
sure, and I think that also even if you bring in new characters from a different angle, like I set up a lot of rules, and some of those rules are like clear for the reader, and some of those rules are for myself for
Okay.
how I write the characters and things like that. And those rules are fun to me, and like I like existing in that headspace of playing with a little bit of the real, a little bit of the absurd, a little bit of the super heroic, a little bit of the all those different pieces. There's something very inviting that for a story there. Like I feel like all of those pieces came together, and like it's only really in hindsight that I'm like looking at it, thinking of like them all as this cohesive piece, but like as I'm building it, I'm like I know that I'm pulling these things together. But
Right.
once that's there, like yeah, that's like for me a solid foundation for something else. So um yeah, I don't know. The next thing that Alex and I are doing is not set in this world, I will
Okay.
say. The we are already working on this next book. But um I would love to because I'd also love to just find another reason to work with Alex and Taylor again.
Definitely. Now, some fun questions.
Mhm.
If Ari could attend any
Mhm.
concert in history,
Yeah.
who would he see?
You go to Fugazi, you go to like a Fort Reno concert. Fort Reno, they used to have these like free concerts. At the Fort Reno is a park
Mm.
uh, in DC, and there's this great stage there, and it, it was the best. And like Ari, the same. It's not like I want to go see. Uh, I want to see Elvis Costello in a small club, or I want to see.
Intimate
Uh,
settings.
yeah, it's not about like some other thing. Like the
Yeah.
DC um, feeling was like also like I want to see these bands. I want to see you know, what Ari doesn't know is he's about to see as a character. Beyond this story. This story takes place really, in the 90s, but like you get into the 2000s, the Ari would have seen like Q and Not You
Mm.
and all these like other fantastic bands that like pop up afterwards that were sort of up and coming in the 90s and really came in like the people that came into their own in the early 2000s and things like that.
Hmm.
All of the bands who like grew up on the other bands and
Yeah,
like that reflexive sort of thing. It keeps the community like going and it keeps like the sound evolving, but also still connected to like a shared feeling. So Ari, would want to just go see who's playing
definitely.
in DC.
Definitely. Now, being as how Ari is very much nurtured in the DC punk rock scene, and yet he is very much homegrown. Does Ari listen to go-go music?
Mhm. Yeah, see, Ari, Ari has an appreciation for go-go music, but never really gets into go-go music.
Okay, gotcha.
Ari listens to a lot of go-go music out in DC because you
Mhm.
can't go
You
anywhere
can't
in
leave.
DC
You
and certainly couldn't
can't
have back
escape
in the
it.
90s. Like, but it's like a sibling to the punk scene.
Yeah, it
But
is.
also
The same way that hip hop is in New York in the
same
punk scene
same
is go-go to the punk scene in DC.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. And like that same feeling though of like this is ours and like this is like this community thing. Like,
Hmm.
oh, there's a lot of overlap. There's so much overlap. But there's also like, is Ari putting on a go-go record? Maybe not.
Okay. Now, comic book question. Which single comic book changed your life?
First one pops into my head is Scud the Disposable Assassin. If you've never read
No.
Scud the Disposable Assassin.
Scud the
So
Disposable
Scud,
Assassin.
can I pull a thing off
Sure.
the wall?
Yep. Yeah.
I'll
Let
pull a thing off the wall.
let me see it.
And I'll say, no disrespect to Rob Schraub. I have kids, so I've covered
Yeah.
up the guns in this thing. Scud the Disposable Assassin. This is issue one
That is amazing.
that I have here.
What does that say at the bottom?
So,
The kid with the broken
Halo.
kid with the broken halo. Okay.
So, Scud is the story of a robot assassin in a world where you can get assassins in a vending machine. And then they self-destruct when they've killed their target. What happens when one of them realizes that will happen, and instead of killing their target, they put them on life support, and they have to go take freelance assassin jobs to keep the their original target on life support. Because if that thing dies, their target dies, then they die.
Right.
So they gotta
Oh,
keep him alive, and it goes on all these weird things. So when I was like 11, I was all about X-Men. I was all into X-Men.
yeah.
Like, I rode the wave of like Jim Lee's X-Men, and I still love them. Like, uh, but I had this friend who I make comics with today as well, Mike Eisenberg, who he was like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "What are you doing?" So he hands me Scud, and Scud, was self-produced by Rob Schrab. He's the writer and artist on it, and it opened my world to independent comics,
That's
and
amazing.
it opened, and in particular, it opened my world to a Big Planet Comics in Bethesda had this fantastic, well curated indie comic like these shelves in the like in the back. So you'd walk through the store, and then there was this like indie area. And so like if I wanted Scud, that's where I went. And that's when I was like, oh, well, what's this? And I start reading like
Yeah.
Evan Dorkin's Milk and Cheese. And I go, what's this? And I start reading Love and Rockets by the Hernandez brothers. And like,
Hmm.
oh, what's this? And that's where Daniel Clowes comes in. And like, it's all like Scud got me to that shelf. And I still think Scud's brilliant. And then like that shelf changed my life because all of those books are like core pieces of me.
Yeah.
Like like when a book hits and like it becomes just like a part of you, like you read it you were meant to read it at that time.
Oh, for sure.
And like it finds you, you read it, and all of a sudden, it's a thing that like it means something else to you. And like so for me, Scud tied also to my friendship with Mike,
Yeah,
Mike opening my eyes to the world of comics. But like, yeah, Scud, it's just a good book. It's wild.
for sure. What's the strangest piece of research you did for this book?
No. Well, so it's got to be just the first two pages of the book. I went into the history of the sandwich,
Yeah.
and so like a lot of that, this is like I was connecting dots in a way. So like I'm looking things up, and I'm trying to find pieces. So the reason the history of the sandwich is in the book, um, maybe I won't say. No, maybe I think, look, your book's going to open up with the history of the sandwich. There's a good reason for it. Read the book, and
There's a good reason.
be
There's a good
confused. Listen, yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah. But like looking at those things, I start thinking like I'm like remembering like different pieces of like history classes and things like that. I'm like, wait, is that a sandwich? Yeah, that can, how does that work? So like I'm like I feel like there's something there, and I start like piecing these things, and like what maybe should have been one page is now two pages, and I find I think this is the case with writing. I think it's the case with art with doing colors. If you I don't think this is the case when you're making a comedy film, because I've seen plenty of comedy films where they look like they're having a great time, but
Yeah.
the jokes aren't landing for me at home. That's the thing. But I do think if
Hmm.
you're having a good time uh, writing something and you're excited about it, then there's a much stronger chance that a reader is going to also be excited by that.
Right.
And
It's not so much of an
all of
inside
these
joke.
it's like an inside joke, but you're letting people in on,
Yeah.
like, so it's like it's this weird thing, but it's for, like you're giving this excitement, you're giving that so like all of the tangents and the asides, I just really loved like in a moment, and then like using them as story devices as well,
Yeah.
so they could serve as adding information to the story, the different pieces. They could serve as like a beat between scenes that need an extra beat. They could serve um, as like a distraction when I want to, I do like the world's worst sleight of hand. I want you to see that I'm doing bad close up magic.
Hmm.
There's a particular scene where I'm like, and I'm just going to talk about something else. And I feel like yeah, I just felt like they felt appropriate. And once I started thinking of those like, how could I incorporate that? And then it just became, as
Right.
I was writing, the rest of the story, like it felt like another beat that I wanted to hit.
For sure. Now,
But yeah, History of the Sandwich, weirdest one.
read the book.
No,
Um,
no, not the weirdest one. Not the
oh,
weirdest
not
one.
the weirdest
The
one.
weirdest one, that's the weirdest one that's in the book. There's one that didn't make it into the book,
Okay.
which is um, I don't know if this is funny or not, but I had an entire section that it felt like to me I needed to pull it out of the script because I'm like, this is derailing me, but I kind of love this. And it was a many page scene involving an aside where so Arnold Schwarzenegger he was married to Maria Shriver, who's part of the
Yes.
Kennedy family, and
Yep.
that's they live in Potomac, or
Hmm.
he doesn't live there, but like the Kennedys do. So he was in Potomac every once in a while. So you'd hear like, oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger was somewhere or whatever, sometime that type of thing. So I went in this long detour about the '96 blizzard that hit DC, of how Arnold Schwarzenegger. I wrote this thing where he's stuck in in the house with his in-laws and he's bored, so he decides to try on every single hat in the house, and a strong breeze knocks his hat off, and then he goes, "Oh no, my hat!" And then he decides to make a movie called "Oh No, My Hat," and then I go through how that movie never gets released because it wasn't very good, and then you could only find it at like those like if you remember like you go to like uh before cons were as big as they were, sometimes you go to a con
Oh,
like back in the 90s and
the
it's like
the Star Trek cons.
yeah, where it's like a smaller thing, and like you got people with like cardboard boxes of like, here's a bootleg copy of that episode of this or
Right.
that. Well, maybe people had bootleg copies of this movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger made that like the studios had to bury because it was going to ruin his career, but everyone knew about it. And then there was a thing, oh, and so at one point Ari just goes, "Oh no, my hat," and like it really derailed the story. That was a case of like when people are making a comedy movie and they think they're having a great time, everyone's having a great time, but it doesn't translate. I was having too good a time with that, and I was
Yeah,
like, this is not a scene that anyone actually needs in this book. This is not good. But I do love it. And I
definitely.
did also, I researched the particular window of time that Arnold Schwarzenegger would have had available to make this fictional film that
Yeah.
would have been in between
Kindergarten Cop and
uh,
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way, and I think it was Kindergarten Cop, and he had like booked another film that had been canceled. I forget what it was. So there was like a window where he actually wasn't working on something. So
Mm,
so it could have worked. There was a whole, but no one needs like no one needs that.
for sure. Finish this sentence. The ghost arm is really about blank.
Processing. I'm going to say processing, and then I'm going to qualify it with processing grief, processing your childhood, moving from one stage to another. Um, it's all about um, becoming more like that person that you grow into,
Hmm.
like change, like, and like, yeah, coming of age is something, but like more about like more like a Pokemon,
Right, right.
becoming that next evolution,
Yeah. It's
and the
the
next
second
thing.
mutation, as they call it.
The second mutation. We're not to the third yet.
Not to
We're
the
not
third.
there. No, 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 no.
That's it.
We're not. Yeah. Um, it's about um, it's about like a community that is um, like jagged and tough on the outside and warm and inviting on the inside. And it's about um, friendships
Hmm.
that that feel like family.
Yeah,
Uh, and it's about a bunch of weird stuff. And that weird feeling, that weird off kilter feeling, like embracing it. It's about embracing that.
for sure. For sure. Oliver, this has been great, man. Thank you. Nah, I really
Th-
appreciate.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the fact that you
This
were
this
able to dive into this with me.
I mean, like I'm thrilled that you wanted to talk about it because as I've said several times, I ramble and at a certain point I just thought you were going to just turn off the thing and be done. But no, I really appreciate talking with you about this. Like this book is like something that I started working on it years ago. It's been this thing that I've been like really steadily like building to this moment of like getting it out there, and I'm like so thrilled to be at a place to talk about it because it's coming out and people are going to be able to go read it. And if anyone wants to pick it up who's listening, I great.
Yeah,
And like also pick it up, ask your library,
yeah,
like libraries have it. Ask, like or pre-order it. If you're going to get it, don't get it on Amazon.
yeah.
Don't get it on like go to your local comic
Go to your
shop.
local comic shop.
Uh, you know,
Matter of fact,
go to your comic shop.
I'm not sure about DC. Third Eye in
Yeah.
Annapolis is pretty great.
Third Eye is fantastic, and Third Eye, because they're not just Annapolis. They have a College Park
Oh,
one, which is not far.
and Glen Burnie that they just opened up.
Glen Burnie, Third Eye is incredible. Big Planet has
Hmm.
several locations in there. They are incredible. My absolute favorite comic shop in the world is Phantom Comics in DC. They're in DuPont. Phantom Comics is the punk rock spirit that I've been talking about of that that DC punk spirit of like inclusion of like bring people in, make a space, make your own thing. They are like a community hub just as much as they are a comic shop. You go in there and like you're going to find a book you love, and you're also going to feel like this is my place. I feel welcome, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to feel welcome there. And so, Phantom Comics in DC. If you're in the area, stop by.
Definitely, definitely. Now, what is the FOC for the book, sir?
FOC is August 10th, so that's
August 10th. Yep.
Monday, I believe. So
Yeah.
August 10th.
Just
So pre-orders pre-orders matter, which is a new thing for me again.
hmm.
Doing self-published stuff. The pre-order was the Kickstarter, like
Yeah.
that's the pre-order, and then yeah, you go there. But no, FOC, it helps shops. It helps me
Hmm.
certainly, and I feel guilty saying that, but it helps me for sure. But it helps shops as well. They know how many to order. They know that there's demand for it. And if you don't, it's still available. You can always ask your
Yeah.
shop
And the
to order
release
something for
date
you.
is in September.
September 2nd.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, if you see me online, I will not shut up about it. So follow me online to hear me not shut up about it.
Heard
At
that.
least for a month, right? Like I feel like this is the
Exactly.
month to, right?
This is the perfect time to do it. This is the
Yeah.
exact perfect time to do it.
This is it, right? Like yeah.
Yep. Oliver, once again, it's been great talking with you. As we talk about FOC is August 10th. So that's about like 4 days away. If you're listening to this podcast, you will hear that repeatedly on here when we're talking about this book for sure. Also, the fact that the release date, as he said, September 2nd. So just before Labor Day, you will get this book in stores. So that's going to be great for everybody to have. Oliver, it's been phenomenal talking with you about the book. I can't wait to dive into
Excellent.
this more. It is a graphic novel, everybody. This is not issues. This is a full 64 pages of wonderfulness.
No, 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 no. This is 180 pages.
I'm crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, no. The original when we did the Kickstarter, we just did the
Yeah.
first sort of
That's
section.
right.
No, this is 180 pages, and plus bonus material as well in the book.
Yeah.
It's a hardcover as well, so like it
Yeah.
only is like they're pulling out the works there for that.
Even better. Because you get all
It
those people that argue about like having a full story and having to
Yeah,
wait.
so this is the full story. You get it. And so as we talk about maybe other stories told in the world, but this is it. This is everything, and yeah, no waiting.
Yeah, for
Get
sure.
the book, and yeah, hardcover. I just love a hardcover book.
Oh, yeah.
Great for the shelf.
Absolutely. So For everybody here at the Facts Project, Oliver Mertz, myself, James Grandmaster Facts Boys. We will see you guys next time on the Facts Project. We are out.